review we have a Mastertronic game from 1987, and that game is called Hyperbowl. So here's the front cover of Hyperbowl with the Hyperbowl logo, and as you'll soon see, this is a bit of misleading kind of cover art because you kind of get the impression here that it's a sort of futuristic racing game with cars on the front. I'm not really sure what that diamond thing's supposed to be, but it is a Mastertronic release as mentioned. Spine just says Hyperbowl on, as you'd expect, and on the back we've got some screenshots which look okay, and the blurb says, in 3600 even ice hockey has gone high tech. It's played with linear motor ships on a metal field complete with inertia cancellation devices, homing missiles and cunning computer opponents. So it's not really ice hockey then, is it, if it's played on a metal field? And as you can see, that's why I was saying the front cover is misleading, because it's got nothing to do with driving really. It's actually a sort of futuristic sports simulation. So inside we've got the instructions, bit of an introduction about the game. As you can see there, it says Mastertronic is proud to bring you the first official Hyperbowl computer simulation. I think that's probably first and only. Then goes on to tell you the rules. Typical sports game, you've got to score more points than your opponent. Pretty obvious stuff. Lots of other stuff going on though, different ships, friction ratings, etc. And it goes on inside to tell you about tournament play, and then the controls, how to play the game. Very comprehensive instructions in this one, and also some quick start instructions, and then it's got all the sort of diagrams of all the craft that you can choose from a simple sort of Asteroids style dart shaped spaceship all the way on to sort of X-Wing fighter style things and all kinds of other stuff. So pretty cool instructions there. Here's the loading screen, which is pretty simplistic. It says Hyperbowl. It's got a spaceship shooting what looks like a giant puck. A couple of interesting things to note about this, however. Firstly, the copyright there is 1986. The copyright on the inlay is actually 1987, but more interestingly, it's got a Mad Games logo in the bottom right hand corner. So at some point this was intended to be a $2.99 release, but eventually got released as a $1.99 regular Mastertronic game. So I don't know if that's an indication of how good the game is going to be, but we'll find out soon enough. Okay, so here's a title screen. Nothing too spectacular there. It's got a funny flashing border and a kind of rotating triangle, which is like one of the ships in the game. Otherwise it's just text. As you can see, it was produced by Binary Design, who did lots of the Mastertronic games. And otherwise, as I said, just text. A couple of options for 1 or 2 player game. Obviously I'm going to play 1 player, and joystick or keyboard. I'll be using the joystick. And Space or Fire starts the game. So let's get on with it. Oh, just to mention for the music, which is very cool actually. Let's have a little listen to that. Like that a lot. Okay, so let's get on with the game now. And you can choose from Easy, Expert or Ace League. I think we'll stick with Easy. And then you get to choose which spacecraft you want to play the game with. And you do that by moving the little spaceship around. You can select all these different ones. It does tell you the differences between them in the manual. But basically I'm just going to start with the first one there, which is rather like the little spaceship from Asteroids, and see how I get on with that. So there we go. And you can see the scoreboard there. 0-0, as you'd expect. And basically this is the game, and it gets underway pretty rapidly. And it's like a game of ice hockey of sorts. And that guy's scored already, which is not a good start. He scored a full goal. You can either score a full goal, which is to hit it into that net there, or you can score a line goal, which pushes it over what's the equivalent of a goal line in football, I suppose. So basically all you got to do to control this thing is just shoot it. There you go, there's a line goal. Line goal's worth 1 point, and a full goal's worth 2. And that's pretty much it for the game. Control of the spaceship is, again, much like Asteroids, so it's left and right to rotate, and fire to fire, and forward to move forward, and there is no moving backwards. And the computer scored another point there, making him 3-1 up. The game lasts 5 minutes, or the match I should say lasts 5 minutes. Graphics are pretty cool, and the animation, sorry, not animation, but the sort of control of the ships is very nicely done. They've got like a kind of inertia, they do accelerate and so on. The pucks are rather boring. The graphics for the court are reasonably decent. Lots of sort of fake sponsorship logos and things on there. And as you can see, the game always focuses on the puck rather than the two ships you're controlling, so a lot of the time you'll find yourself off the screen and trying to make your way back onto the screen using that little radar at the top, which is reasonably well implemented but not great. Oh, these ships are almost impossible to control, they slide all over the place. Sound effects within the game itself are limited to just the blasting of the two weapons on the ships. If I'm not careful, I'm going to score an own goal. See, there's a lot of aimless firing goes on. And that's pretty much it. There's not really much else to say about the game. It's again one of those games where I think, and I've just lost another point there, it is a first to 9, or there's a time limit, as I mentioned, of 5 minutes on each round. He's absolutely whooping my ass here. I think it's one of those games where if you play against a computer you've got next to no chance of winning. Bearing in mind these are the simplest ships on the easiest level, but probably is much more enjoyable as a 2-player game, playing against a mate. It's quite nicely put together. It's certainly got no problems in control or gameplay department. It's pretty simple, but it's also quite effective and nicely put together. It's just not very interesting. I think 5 minutes is way too long for a match. Probably if it was more like 3 minutes you'd feel a bit more like you wanted to make further progress in the game. What I will do after this match is finished is have a look at some of the other spaceships that you can use. They do control differently and they do have different features to them, but the computer always seems to choose exactly the same one as you do, so you don't get to see much of a difference between them. I'm now losing 6-1. This is an absolute whooping. Not much more of this round left. If you win a round, which you probably won't see me do, I have done it once before, then you do go on to play another round against the same opponent. I think it's the best of 3 possibly. If you lose the round it's game over straight away, so it doesn't seem entirely fair. It's quite clever that you can see which way you're travelling on these little readouts here, see which way you're pointing. It still makes it bloody hard to find the puck half the time though. I really need one of these full goals so I have any chance of staying in this game. I think it's pretty much over anyway. Oh, he's just blocked me right at the last second. Really annoying. As you probably also noticed, the puck does rebound off the walls, which is kind of what you'd expect, rather similar to ice hockey. Just try and get another point on the board for heaven's sake. Any kind of a point will do. There we go, that should get me one. Hey, it's gone in the full goal. He actually helped me there. I'm slightly back in it, but I'm probably not going to win because there's not much time left on the board now. There we go, time out. So I lost. So it quickly shows the leaderboard, scoreboard I should say, and I'm rated as useless, and it goes back to the beginning, so it's basically game over if you lose. So as mentioned, I will try and show you a couple of the other spaceships quickly. So same process again. But this time I'm going to pick one of these ships across the bottom. I'll pick this sort of hexagonal looking one. See how much it varies the game. So these ones move a little bit more slowly, they're a little bit easier to control, they don't slide around as much. And they also shoot slightly homing missiles, so if you're not quite on target, they do actually look pretty reasonable. Help pretty reasonably well, I should say. There you go, I scored already, I'm winning 1-0. But as I mentioned, it soon gets pretty boring as a one-on-one game. It's kind of reminiscent a bit, it's kind of like a 2D version of Ball Blazer, which I reviewed not too long ago, probably a couple of months ago. It's that kind of a game. It's a sort of futuristic one-on-one sports game in spaceships. So you see the homing missiles don't do a massively great job, but this one does. It's not quite as open, I think. It's kind of more sort of a compact sort of a game because you get more shots on target. The ball just sort of stays in the middle more often than not. And because the control of the ships is less erratic, that also helps you sort of keep more control, which makes it a lot more even. Certainly more even than the first game where I was already about 4 down by this point. But there's not much more to show on that, so I'll complete that game without you watching and then quickly show one more spaceship just for another comparison. But there's not much difference in them all, to be honest. The concept of the game is the same regardless. So back at the Choose Your Craft selection screen, I'm going to choose one of these fancy looking spaceships across the top here. I'm going to choose this blue one at the end, see if it makes any difference to the gameplay. Let's get on with it quickly. Wow, the computer's pretty good with this one. Look at that, full goal straight away. So the main difference it's making is I've got absolutely no chance. Control wise, they seem to be quite tight to control, probably a little bit quicker and more rapid fire maybe. I don't know, I can't remember what the fire was like on the first ones. They're definitely tighter to control because they stop almost instantly, which is very good, and that could make for quite an open game, I think. But there's not much more to say about the game. As I've already said, it's not that interesting playing against the computer. It's a bit tedious, but playing against a friend it could be quite nice. There's nothing wrong with the game in terms of the way it's put together. It's well designed, good control, plenty of options with the different spaceships. The graphics are quite nice. Just scored a full goal, by the way, there. I could be in with a chance of winning this round, but all that happens if you do is go to another round, as I already mentioned. So that's pretty much it. There's more mentioned. I should just point out, if I can just get to this right hand side of the screen again quickly, that oh, it's getting a disaster now. There's more mention of it originally being a MAD release. There's MAD Games logos on the right hand side and left hand side of the screen, but now the ball's stuck in the middle. I can't really be bothered to show you. Hopefully you noticed it earlier on. So that's it for a review. Is it worth $1.99? Yeah, it probably is for a 2-player game, playing against your friends. I'd say it's probably worth $1.99. It's not. It definitely wouldn't have been worth $2.99, I don't think. But there's nothing really you can say to complain about the game. It's pretty nicely put together, really. I'd say just not particularly interesting playing against the computer, and rather difficult to shoot the puck in the direction you want to at times. Let's just quickly see if I can show you that Mad Games logo at the end. There you go, that's what I was talking about. And that'll do nicely for the end of the review.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.